What started as an exuberant evening, a lot of excitement leading into the night has led to a little bit of, wavering in, just emotion generally. I don't know how many people are wavering in the Mavs. A lot of people feeling still relatively positive. A lot of Mavs in 6 I still see on the YouTube and on the Twitch. But as somebody said from the 817, we're on script. Losing game 1, adjusting, shocking the world. Mavs in 6, we gonna be all right. So there's a lot of emotion that's involved, and so we watched this game. We tried to put our eyes on it and give you a good idea of what we saw, but I feel like there's always a better person to get the inside of, somebody who watched the game closely and who watches the game as a fellow ball knower. He works for DallasMavs.com. His name is Bobby Karalla, and he joins us right now on the DNM Leasing Hotline. Bobby, what's happening, my man?
Reggie, I'm just trying to gather my thoughts, put some bandages on all the cuts and scrapes and bruises and get ready to talk some basketball, man.
Well, you know what? I think that it can be therapeutic talking through it. And so I don't know how much this is going to be an interview more than just kind of a conversation of what happened. And I kind of want to start with here. I know that there's some people that are saying they saw a lackadaisical defensive effort from the Mavericks, at least in the first half. Is that how you saw it, or did you just see the challenge that is the Boston Celtics present itself in a strong way to the Mavericks?
I mean, I think the answer to both questions is yes. Boston. Oh, so let's rewind to the Thunder series, right? The Thunder led the league in 3-point percentage this season, but they didn't lead the league in 3-point attempts. That was Boston. And the Thunder play at least one guy at all times whose 3-point shot you don't necessarily fear, or maybe doesn't even venture out to the 3-point line. The Celtics usually play 0 guys that meet that criteria. So it's a different challenge than anything they faced in the playoffs so far, and it's a much tougher, much more extreme challenge. Every guy on Boston has a very quick release. There's no guys that take forever to get rid of the ball. You have to get out there. So I think on the one hand, the Celtics present a much steeper challenge than anybody else Dallas has faced. On the other, that does mean, the Mavs, they should have been prepared for this. You should know all these guys want to shoot. They have the green light. They are going to fling 40 or 50 of these toward the rim if you leave them open. So you have to get out there. And it just looked like, especially in the first half, it just felt like guys were a little reticent. Do I need to get out there as soon as possible? Or maybe they're reacting to guys relocating instead of anticipating it. And those are things that, especially in game 2, but as the series goes along, you would expect them to get up to speed with. But yeah, it was really frustrating. I don't know how many times you need to see a guy take a wide open 3 to think I should probably get out there a little sooner next time. But then if you get out there too quickly, they're going to put it on the floor, get past you, and it's going to be a dunk. So we saw plenty of that too. So it's all about striking the right balance. Learning, kind of learning their tendencies, learning your own limitations and how you can defend these guys. And, hopefully the product will be a lot better next time out.
Bobby, I'd love to pick your brain on this point. The Mavs have been so good at getting those lobs. They led the playoffs and all those kind of lob alley-oop plays. No lobs were done tonight. Only 2 corner threes. Luka and Kyrie with 3 combined assists. What was the Celtics defense doing so well to limit what the Mavs do so well on offense?
Yeah, so the Celtics' whole defensive scheme is designed around taking away shots from the corner. They've only conceded 6 3-point attempts per game in the playoffs this postseason, which is, that is nutty. The Mavs, it felt like they were taking 10 or 15 of those per game against the Thunder. And the Wolves did their part to take those away, but as the series went on, they started blitzing Luka, and Kyrie to a degree, putting more attention those guys' direction, and that allows Jones or Washington or Josh Green to fade to the corner spot up there and get those open looks. But the Celtics do not blitz. They don't send 2 at the ball. In fact, they very rarely ever play any sort of drop even against the pick and roll that would allow Luka and Kyrie to navigate their way into those weird spaces in the middle of the floor where they might attract defensive attention. The Celtics just switch everything all the time. And, that prevents any sort of driving lane coming right off that screen. And also that prevents the roll man from rolling to the rim, because instead of there being an alley for him to rumble down, he's just running into the guy that previously was guarding Luka. And whenever you're able to effectively switch everything without, creating any sort of devastating mismatch that you have to find a way to overcome, you don't have to cheat off shooters. You're not giving up rolling lanes for guys. You're not really falling for any off-ball tricks. You can just say, hey, can you beat me? And Luka did. I thought Luka had a really good scoring game. He would have had some more assists if guys made some open threes, but, three-point shooting comes and goes. Kyrie got some good shots. He got a lot of good looks from three, especially, and those just didn't fall, they didn't fall down. But basically, the only way that the Mavs are going to get the lob game and the corner three game going is if both Luka and Kyrie are so devastatingly effective, and maybe the Mavs even have to build a lead in the series. Like, this is going to be a very slow, very grinded out kind of offensive game from Dallas, probably at least for the next 2 or 3 games in the series before Boston finally has to adjust.
We're talking to Bobby Karalla of DallasMavs.com in Studio 41 here on the Get Right on 105 through the Fan. And Bobby, there's two things that kind of converge. Derek Lively, 18 minutes, 2 points. It felt like he was ineffective, and I'd like to know why. And I imagine that also dovetails with how you managed to lose the rebound game to the Boston Celtics, 47-43, in a place where I thought that was one of the probably more clear advantages that the Mavericks had coming into the series.
Yeah, I mean, Lively scoring and Gafford scoring in this series, until Boston, or if Boston ever starts, double teaming or blitzing Luka and Kyrie, is going to have to come on offensive rebounds, and putbacks. And maybe, we saw one, I think the only lob attempt all game was actually from Derek Jones Jr. to Lively, but he overthrew him and they just didn't connect. So maybe off of some other sort of like Luka beats his guy, kicks it out, and then that guy drives, and then all of a sudden you have a lob. But otherwise, those two are going to have to thrive on just putbacks and kind of junking it up and scoring that way. But, as for defensive rebounding, I mean, the Mavs did miss way more shots than Boston. So obviously, there's going to be a lot more rebounding opportunities for the Celtics in that respect. But especially in the first quarter, man, the Celtics were getting a lot of second chances. They had one possession, I think, where they had 4 or 5 shots.
Yep.
And I'm not sure they scored on that one, which was kind of a miracle. But basically, the Celtics spaced the floor so well that oftentimes it's Gafford or Lively closing out on the shooter. Or, maybe they're not covering the guy that's actually shooting the three, but they're still 20, 25 feet away from the rim whenever the shot goes up. So you can't count on those guys to get every single rebound. We saw as the Mavs started making a comeback, like P.J. Washington was getting a lot of rebounds. Luka was getting a lot of rebounds. Guys were sort of, everyone, Josh Green pulled down a couple, I think. Everyone is going to have to get in there. Everyone is going to have to find a body, and put a body on a body, box these guys out, and rebound as a unit. You can't just count on your 2 7-footers to be vacuum cleaners down there and scoop everything up. Everyone's got to be engaged, and that means, again, if you're closing out on a shooter, you can't start running down the floor. You can't be ball watching. You can't take a possession off or a second off in the series because the Celtics know. And Drew Holiday, great offensive rebound guy. Derek White, really, really clever about knowing when to crash the glass. Like, even the smallest players on the Celtics are going to try and create those second chances. And Boston's offense is just way too good to allow so many extra bites at the apple. So the Mavs are really, really going to have to pay attention to detail in that respect in Game 2 and moving forward.
Bobby, what did you see from Jay Kidd's rotations? Me and Reggie talked about it as usually Game 1 is kind of a feel-out game for him, trying a bunch of different pieces and players and rotations. What did you like? What did you not like? Who do you see getting minutes more going forward? Who do you see minutes maybe going down a little bit, and kind of what you saw overall from the rotations?
Yeah, he went with Hardy in the backcourt early, and I don't think Hardy had a particularly effective first quarter. But in the fourth quarter, obviously the game is out of reach. But I thought Hardy was a lot better, so maybe that can settle him down to a degree. I thought the Mavs got some pretty decent looks whenever they ran the 5 out with Maxey at the 5. That's something that we haven't seen much of lately, just because obviously Maxey was out for the Thunder series, and then against Minnesota, Dallas was typically playing a big next to him, so Maxey was playing the power forward. I think maybe, if Lively's in foul trouble like he was tonight, or if Gafford is kind of ineffective, especially closing out on shooters, and like if KP gets going, for example, then maybe they go more to Maxey at the 5, because that allows them to keep Luka and Kyrie, PJ, and Jones on the floor. So, I mean, in theory, your 4 most dynamic perimeter players alongside a guy that can switch on defense and still give you a little size around the rim. So maybe we'll see a little more of that. But I am curious. We went with Hardaway, I think, in the third quarter. Maybe it was the second quarter there. Tim got a little bit of minutes. I wonder if Hardy will be the first guy off the bench in Game 2, or if it'll be Hardaway, or maybe if Exum will get a look, or somebody else. Just, Hardy didn't really emerge until very late in that Thunder series. So Kidd is definitely, he's going to push some buttons to figure out what works. But, unfortunately tonight, pretty much nothing worked. And so it's kind of back to the drawing board, I think, for game 2.
Bobby, I mean, look, there was a lot of dudes on the other side of the floor that played really well, but one particularly smarted, I think, a lot of Mavs fans because it happened very early and because of the relationship that he has with your team, and that's Kristaps Porzingis. It felt like he was very effective in all of the things that he typically does well. What did you see from him, and how sustainable does it feel? Because I thought that was the immediate question that we asked ourselves at halftime.
Man, I mean, he had 18 points and 3 blocks in the first half, so I'm not sure that will ever happen again, but his presence around the rim is definitely going to be consistent, and he was really, really good facing up smaller players, in both the first half and the second half. And thinking back to his time in Dallas, that was something that he always kind of struggled with. Like, teams would just switch small guys onto him, and he could never really back them down. Sometimes he'd try and turn around and shoot over them, but it felt like he could never really get his balance right. Like, those little guys were able to get into him, maybe knock him off his spot. But Josh Green, Jaden Hardy, they couldn't really do it. I thought Luka stripped him at one point and did really well. So, maybe Luka has his number a little bit, but man, Porzingis was awesome. It was unbelievable, watching his first quarter. He was just a freak out there, blocking Josh Green the way he did and just erasing a couple other shots at the rim, as the Mavs were trying to cut into the lead a little bit. I mean, they have to find an answer for that. And I don't know if that's playing more 5 out, to where you're pulling Porzingis away from the rim the way that the Celtics are trying to pull away Gafford and Lively, or if you're trying to involve him in more pick and roll actions so that he can't lurk on the weak side. He's out defending Luka on the perimeter, or the Celtics have to find some, creative way to prevent him from switching onto Luka. I think the Mavs are going to have to problem solve a little bit. But honestly, I mean, I'm surprised he didn't start. I think the Mavs might have been expecting that, and all of a sudden you're in your rotation. You got some backups in the game whenever he checks in for the first time. So, I wonder if he'll continue coming off the bench for them or if that was just a one-time thing. But, man, he was amazing. And if he's going to be playing like this at both ends of the floor, this series gets way, way tougher because that dude, I mean, we remember whenever he's playing great in Dallas, he feels like a one-of-one kind of player. He is the unicorn for a reason, and he was definitely the unicorn tonight.
Bobby, last one from me here. Can you give some hope to myself, to the MFFLs listening, and kind of where your confidence is going now throughout the rest of the series? We've seen how game 1 played out. They had a devastating loss earlier in the playoffs to the Clippers, to Oklahoma City. Same thing happened in 2011, as some fans are mentioning to us. Does your confidence waver after this game? Is this all part of the chorus? Where are you at after this game mentally?
My confidence doesn't waver, no. They got smoked pretty good in games 1 against the Clippers and against the Thunder. So, it's a dangerous game to be playing, kind of running the game 1 gimmick, as a lot of fans are calling it. But I think the Mavs have shown, throughout this run, I don't think they've lost consecutive games yet in the playoffs. And now Boston is a different animal. So, the adjustments better be on point for game 2. But this is a team that knows how to bounce back. And, they shot it so poorly in the first quarter, and the Celtics shot it so well in the first quarter, that despite all of the nonsense that was happening, the Mavs were only down 8 with the ball, like midway through the third quarter. They were in a position to make it, potentially a 2-shot game, despite going down by 28, despite the Celtics it felt like they scored like 20 points in like a minute and a half at the end of the first quarter, and they have the ability to do that every single game. And they kind of did that tonight twice. So, this is going to be a series with a lot of wild swings. Whenever a team shoots as many threes as Boston does, that's bound to be the case. There's going to be a lot of Celtics haven't scored in 5 minutes, and then you look up and, oh my God, how did they just score 15 points, like in 2 possessions? There's going to be a lot of that, but you got to be able to roll with the punches. You got to have poise. And to that end, I don't think Kyrie's going to shoot 30% again in the series or whatever he shot tonight. I mean, it was a very uncharacteristic Kyrie game, especially, missing a lot of the clean threes that he was missing. So Kyrie shoots a little better, and the Mavs maybe don't just donate 15 points to the Celtics Foundation in the final minute of the first quarter again, then I think it'll be a much more competitive game too.
And maybe find a little bit better offense in the paint, in the restricted area. That would be great as well.
They missed so many layups, like just missed them. They got blocked several times, but I mean, they were just missing like finger rolls. Very, very unusual.
Bobby, we always appreciate your time. Always have a final question for me, and I understand it's a little bit of a tough time, but was there anything, any statistics that you found interesting, or just kind of a kind of passing thought that you found interesting that you'd love to share?
Yeah, I mean, I think Luka ended the game only -6, -5, -6, something like that, which is still negative, and negative means you're losing. But, I mean, look at the final score. They were way better with him on the floor than off the floor. So that is kind of a good thing. But the counterpoint to that would be, I'm not sure, you know, if the non-Luka minutes are going to be a struggle like the way they were tonight, albeit there was only like 5 of them. So maybe, you know, you'll just be better next time because of regression or whatever. But Luka might have to play a ton of minutes in this series. You know, he might have to play 45, 46 minutes in this series. And so, you know, for as much as they were making him work on defense, is he going to be up to the challenge to do that? Because he was really, really good tonight, and the team really struggled without him. So it's kind of a good thing, kind of a bad thing, but that is definitely the thing I'm keeping my eye on the most in Game 2.
Yeah, sorry, I was going to let you go, but you know, jogged my memory. There was one time during the broadcast where ESPN on ABC shows us Luka hustling to get back but grimacing. Like, what did that feel like? That was an accurate representation of where he's at? Because I know some people have kind of asked about that injury. We haven't talked a lot about it, but it's still there.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like he was moving so well at the end of that Wolves series. Obviously, he had the great Game 5, which kind of, you know, made it seem like that was the case even more so. But he did say, you know, in one of his interviews before Game 1, like, yeah, that the injury did not get any better during this long layoff. So I'm not sure we'll ever know exactly what's bothering him until the season is over and done with. But, I mean, I'm sure we were all hoping to see him just feel like $1 million. You know, he did take a kind of a weird fall right before that. So hopefully it was just like an in-the-moment thing. He kind of felt just a little weird. But, I mean, they're obviously going to need him at 99.99999% if they want to have a chance in this thing. So hopefully, you know, with a couple of days off between Game 1 and Game 2, he's able to get back, you know, closer to 100 than he was today.
Bobby, we appreciate you greatly. Hopefully we get a win next time around so we can have more positive vibes around the game. But it's always a pleasure when we get a chance to talk to you, my man.
Absolutely, man. Anytime. Thanks for having me.